conclude that we have a powerful faith. My scripture today, or my message today, is a victim or a victor. And I'll be honest with you, you don't have to turn on a TV very long. You don't have to pick up a newspaper before the word victim pops out at you. Indeed, it seems to be the catchphrase of the society today. There seems to be a lot of victims today. And as a Christian, as a church, it may require us to consider how we are to live in such a society. But before I get serious, I've got to tell you about a story of a man and a woman who were married. Early on in their marriage, they said, we're going to forgive and we're going to forget. And that seemed like a pretty good idea. But it seemed like his wife would continually remind him of things that he had done. And he goes, "Dear, I thought we agreed to forgive and forget." And she said, "Oh, I have, dear, but I don't want you to forget what I've forgiven." I think too often, when it comes to forgiving and forgetting, we get a little bit like that. The wrongs that are done against us, we'll say we forgive, and I know I've preached on this before, but I can tell you that as a young Christian, people would ask me, had I forgiven somebody, and I would go, yeah. I've said those words. But it's more than saying words. It's more than just taking on an attitude and saying, here it is. And I suppose perhaps if you look in the Bible, no one probably more than David suffered and was victimized more. Now it can be argued that David did victimize a few people also, but Psalm 10, 1 through 18 is a time where David is questioning and asking God just what's going on. He says, "Oh Lord, do you stand far away? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? In arrogance, the wicked hotly pursue the poor. Let them be caught in their schemes that they have devised. For the wicked boast of the desires of his soul, and the one greedy for grain curses and renounces the Lord. In the pride of his face, the wicked does not seek him, although his thoughts are, there is no God. His way prospers at all time. Your judgments are on high, out of the sight. As for all his foes, he puffs on them. He stays his heart, I shall not be moved throughout all generations. I shall not meet adversity. His mouth is filled with cursing and deceit and oppression. Under his tongue are mischief and iniquity. He sits in ambush in the village. In hiding places he murders the innocent. His eyes stealthily watch the helpless. He lurks in ambush like a lion in the thicket. He lurks that he may seize the poor. He seizes the poor when he draws him into the net. The helpless are crushed and sink down, fall by his might. He says in his heart, God has forgotten. He has hidden his face. He will never see it. Arise, O Lord, O God. Lift up your heart. Forget not the afflicted. Why does the wicked renounce God and say in his heart, you will not call to account? But you do see, for you note mischief and vexation, that you may take it into your hands. To the helpless commits himself. You will be the helper of the fatherless. Break the arms of the wicked and the evildoer. Call his wickedness to account, till you've died none. The Lord is king forever, and the nations perish from the land. O Lord, hear our desire of the afflicted. You will strengthen their hearts. You will incline your ear to do justice to the fatherless and the oppressed, so that man who is on the earth may strike terror no more. Like I said, today the word victim is a pretty common word. In fact, I see some folks taking it like a badge of honor that they are victims. And I suspect, if the truth be known, we've all seen some victimhood in our lives, some more so than others. So I think it behooves us to understand understand just exactly what it is to be a victim. And so I looked it up in the dictionary, as a good guy should. Turns out it's a noun, and it's a person harmed, injured, or killed as a result of a crime, accident, or other event or action, such as the victims of domestic violence. I think that the fact that the dictionary makes it a noun is important. What it's saying is, becoming a victim redefines who you are. It redefines what you are. And to be honest with you, I don't believe that you can become a victim without it changing you somehow. It's a defining event, oftentimes a definingly terrible event. It changes from what you were to what you are. And the truth of the matter is, in some cases, the victimization of people is horrific and completely without merit. But today, I find a lot of folks almost desiring to have that status of being victims. And I wonder sometimes, why would I want to be a victim? Why would I want to remain a victim? Now, I understand if you don't know how to get out of it, that there's no way to escape. But it seems to me that there are folks who are choosing to remain victims. And I think it's a little scary because oftentimes, as a victim, you suddenly say, I have no control over my life. I have no control over the outcome. And that's a dangerous place to be when you relinquish the control to someone else's control. So who can be a victim? I'll tell you what, I think anyone can be a victim. Some more so than others. And I will tell you, a lot of what I hear is conflicting. One of the things that are very popular catchphrase today is white privilege. And it's just that because I'm Caucasian, that I somehow have a better life than other people have that are of different colors. There's some arguments that can be made for that, and I believe in many cases it has been that case. But I would have a hard time talking to an Irish American who came here in the 1880s and who were literally considered lower class than the blacks who were here. They were not even considered human. They were considered animals. Those Irish people were victimized, as were many black people, as were many other people of different colors and races. They were considered victims. Now, did they also victimize others? I suspect if you go through history, you'll find cases where you can say that. The problem with victimization today is there are two polar opposites in viewing victimization. And as that's the case with a lot of human nature, you'll find people clear over here, and you will find people clear over there. And it's so often the case when you find polar opposites, both are wrong. The first attitude is that people who are victims for life. There's nothing they can do, and they can never escape their victim status unless someone helps them. Unless someone of a higher standard gives them that hand up. That's a wrong attitude. The other polar opposite is, you were never a victim. Just pull up your bootstraps, move on. It wasn't that tough. It wasn't that bad. Everybody suffers. Get over it. Again, totally wrong. Both of those attitudes fail to look at victimhood in its reality. Both of them tend to take and desire to put an identity on someone based on my perception, not theirs. And I will tell you the truth. It's not for someone else to present another person with their victimhood. You all, most of you know my story. As a young man or a young child, I was a victim of abuse. My dad beat me, my family, my brothers, and my mother. And as a teenager, he put a gun to my head, cocked the hammer, and threatened to blow my head off. I would suspect most people would say I qualify as a victim. That was not a good thing for a kid to have to go through. I will tell you, while that is a victimizing situation, I no longer consider myself a victim. I no longer put myself in the status of a victim. Why? We're going to get to that. The problem is, the world will victimize people. We live in an evil world. People will do wrong and bad things. I am but one of a billion people on this earth that have been victimized in one shape or another. The first thing I had to do to quit being a victim was to give up my victim card. Now, it's not a physical card that I didn't hold, but it was a card that I did hold nonetheless. You see, I had a lot of righteous indignation, as the Bible might call it. I deserved to be angry, to hate my father. He did not ask for forgiveness, so he did not deserve my forgiveness. He did not ever come to a point of acknowledging what he had done. Or, I cannot forgive while I still feel pain. And the worst one is I deserve to feel this anger, hate, and rage within me because it's justified for what I went through. I'm here to tell you, folks, I went through that stage. I went through it a long time. And today when I look at the news, I see a lot of angry people screaming those very same lines. God called me to let go. Not because my father deserved it. Not because what he did was not as bad as his thought it was. God called it to let it go because he knew that as long as I held on to it, I remained a victim. I remained in his control. And that it was more destructive to me to fail to forgive than it was for him to not be forgiven. We need, as Christians, to understand that God can overcome anything. Now, I'm here to tell you, forgiving those people who victimize you seems impossible. There was a point in time where had you confronted me, and there were people that did probably confront me, and tell me exactly that I went, no way. You don't understand what I went through. You don't understand my pain. You don't understand my suffering. But the fact of the matter is, when I became a Christian, God confronted me with my sin. And he showed me that while I somehow had a pious attitude, that I was somehow better than my father, I was wrong. I was in need of God's love and forgiveness as much as my father was. I was as much a sinner as anyone else out there. God's forgiveness and healing is like a balm. And it does not work instantaneously. It is slow. But I'm here to tell you that weakness became strength, fear became bravery, and all the things that being a victim took from me were given back, and then some were given more. My hot anger became a calm love. I no longer feared what man could do to me because God was with me. I have the greatest big brother in the universe. His name is Jesus Christ. And there ain't a bully out there that can stand up to him. Most of you are aware that I am involved with Wings of Refuge. It's a Christian organization that helps women out of sexual trafficking and restores them back to a healthy, productive life in the world. These women have been victimized in ways that most of you cannot imagine. They have literally gone through the most dehumanization, the most demeaning of lives. Some literally come in with brands like you would brand a cattle. That men will take hot irons and brand them because they're property, not human. Their horrors are beyond the ability for you and I to comprehend. I cannot say that I understand. But I do know this, that from my involvement with that group, I have witnessed through that house women being restored, finding themselves, realizing that they were loved by God and valued in God's eyes, and that they became victors rather than victims. One situation that still moves me every time I remember it and share it. One of the staff members went into Wings of Refuge one day struggling. Someone had wronged her. She was a victim. That what had been done, I don't know. She never shared that much. But she went in with an attitude of hostility, I guess you might say, about this individual who had done her wrong. And this was going on in her mind as she was dealing with the girls in the house. And one of the young ladies came up to her rather, and said, you know, I understand that Jesus Christ died for my sins. And that part of his dying for my sins is a need for me to forgive others. I want you to help me pray for the man who perpetrated the sexual trafficking on me. I want to pray to forgive him. Now, I'm here to tell you that young staff member's life suddenly changed. Her perspective completely changed. The small wrongs that she was holding in her heart suddenly paled when she realized that this young lady was about to try and forgive a man who had done atrocious things to her. Her heart was so desired to be free of that she was willing to forgive. And I'm here to tell you that in that moment, she went and lost her victim card, and she became a victor. She was no longer a victim of that man's bad behavior. When I look back at my father, I can tell you I feel nothing but sorrow and pity for him. I realize he grew up in a very dysfunctional home. The anger that I once held is gone. Why? Because I was able to forgive him. I was able to let it go. And in doing so, I lost my victim card. And I'm here to tell you, there should be no one out here that desires to remain a victim. There should be no one who says, I deserve to be recognized as a victim. Because victory is there. God is offering it to anyone who wishes to desire to have it. It's my desire that no one continues a life of victimhood. It's my desire that we all come before God and say, hey, people have done bad things to me, but God, your word says you can overcome it. And he can, and he does. Don't expect a sudden and easy victory. I've been through it, and I will tell you it took years to come to where I'm at. I honestly believe that that long process is necessary. And I want to share an example from a story that kind of illustrates it, I suspect. And it was talking about a little boy who found a cocoon And when he looked at the cocoon, there was a small gap appearing. And the boy passing by saw it and watched as the butterfly kept trying to get out of the cocoon. And it was taking a long time. And the butterfly was trying very hard. But the gap, little by little, was starting to tear. And it seemed like to the little boy that the butterfly was losing the battle. And he decided that, being a compassionate young man, he would help. So he took his penknife and cut at the cocoon. And he watched as the butterfly got out of the cocoon, now spread its wings, and attempted to fly. However, it didn't. The problem being is the butterfly developed its wings in the struggle. The butterfly developed its ability and its strength of its wings in the struggle to get out of the cocoon. By eliminating that struggle, those wings did not develop. The butterfly could not fly. What he had hoped would help the butterfly doomed him. Life forced the butterfly to leave its shell heartily. It became stronger and stronger as it developed. If we are allowed to live without the meeting of difficulties, we would not be viable. Life gives us challenges to make us stronger. I told you that I think most people would call me a victim of what I went through. And I will smile when people will say that to me now, because I'll be honest with you. I'm the least victim person I can imagine. I have an inner strength because of what I went through, because of my struggle in my cocoon. The gal that I was referring to at Wings of Refuge is a much stronger person. One of them same young ladies is now a staff member. She is now working with girls coming out of the same situation she did. And the strength that she shows in dealing with those young ladies is unbelievable. She has an authority that I could never have. The strength I feel is because of the troubles that I went through. Were they a victimizing situation? Yes, they have. But I'm here to tell you that if you turn it to God, all life's difficulties, all the victimhood in your life can be turned to a positive thing. One of my favorite verses is Romans 8:28. It says that God will take all things and make them productive in your life. It will become a good thing. Now, I'm here to tell you that as a 16-year-old boy with a gun in my head, I'd have been hard-pressed to have you tell me that and me believe it. But as a 64-year-old man looking back on that, I can tell you how many times I faced knives and guns after that without fear. I've been there already. Fear was gone. God had prepared me, equipped me, and empowered me because of the weakness that I had dealt with. Because of the victimhood, God made me stronger. My friends, today there are a lot of people feeling like victims. And I'm here to tell you, I understand. You have suffered. You have been hurt. But Jesus Christ is standing there going, and I will heal you if you but turn to me. Too many people cling to that victim card, feeling like there's no way for them to escape. No way for them to ever see daylight. And I'm here to tell you that God is able and He is willing. And I am physical proof that He can, and I can show you many others that can. So if you're feeling like a victim today, my challenge is take that victim card out of your back pocket, tear it up, and say, Lord, I no longer desire to be there. I no longer desire to be in this situation. I want victory. I want to be a victor. And sit back and watch him do it. Because my friends, if he did it for a guy like me, he'll do it for good people like you. I'm a Lola nothing. I did not amount to much as a young man. I can tell you stories about me that would probably shock you. In my heartlessness, in my incompassion, Jesus Christ still loved me. He still took what he saw in me, and he created something much bigger and much stronger than whatever was there before. And because of that, I stand before you and tell you that if you've been victimized, it's time to get to God, because he will help you through it. I didn't again pick these new songs out, but as I look at the titles and I look at